Number one, Professor Mohammed Sani Kalla.
On the live broadcast of Senate plenary today, 9th of June 2021. Well, and from the order paper here, we have 5 bills that have already passed for first reading. That is, bills that have been introduced on the floor of the Senate for today. And then the next thing to be scheduled for second reading at a later date. Here too, we have some appointment from the President as commissioners for the Independent National Electoral Commission. And then, well, it appears that today the order paper is very scanty, but as usual, we have with us here the Chairman Senate Committee on Rules and Business, Senator Sadiq Umar, who will now tell us why does the order paper today look very scanty. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, now from the order paper, we found out that there are about 2 or 3 items, and it appears the order paper is very scanty. What is the reason for this, and what are we expecting on the floor of the Senate today?
Thank you very much. As you are aware, the night assembly is going to be 2 years by Friday. So the order paper today is deliberately designed to accommodate us to review our 2 years, the journey so far. So after the usual, initial bills, the key event, the key business of the day will be reviewing our 2 years. That is 2 years for the night Senate live. This gives opportunity to every senator to rise up and talk about what he has experienced so far, what efforts he thinks the night Senate has made, where there are gaps, what we need to pay more attention to, and so on. And then review generally the economy, security, and see what have we done as senators, what are our efforts to see that we contribute, our quota to national development.
Okay. Now, sometimes it's like been a tradition that within a period like this, there is 1 or 2 days of holidays. Are we expecting something like that?
Oh, sure. After today's section, we'll have a brief holiday, about a week, so we will not be sitting throughout next week. We'll be resuming upper week on Tuesday.
From here, we say congratulations on your 2 years anniversary.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. Now, we'll go straight to the chamber to follow the day's proceedings.
And there was no change of request. So they are not resident electoral commissioners. I think we need to clear that air. And thank you very much for seconding. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate do consider the request of Mr. President CNC for the confirmation of the nomination of the listed persons, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. And the request of Mr. President CNC is referred to the Committee on INEC to report back within 2 weeks. Thank you very much. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the third order of the day is the special session of the Senate to mark the second anniversary of the 9th Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Mr. President, distinguished senators, may I move that the Senate do begin the special session to mark its second anniversary by moving a motion that this Senate do conduct itself and prepare itself to begin this special session. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, I have a short speech to read before we start the deliberations on our second year anniversary. My distinguished colleagues, this will be the last plenary session that will hold in the first half of the life of this 9th Assembly or 9th Senate. On Friday, June 11, will be marking the second anniversary of our inauguration in this hallowed chamber. This special session is therefore an occasion for us to assess our parliamentary service delivery to the people of Nigeria, our country, in the last 2 years. In other words, it is an appropriate step to have a mid-term review of how we deployed legislative interventions to enhance good governance in our country. Distinguished colleagues, this is also an occasion that gives us the opportunity to review our legislative agenda to reflect the new challenges and issues of the moment that have arisen in our country in the last 2 years. This occasion is also an avenue to redefine our strategies on how to carry out our effective oversight on the executive arm of government. And of course, our committees have been doing a good job in the oversight of the MDS, but we should be able to identify the ways and means of improving this oversight activities, which is a major pillar of our tasks and mandate as senators. This is also an opportunity to renew, recommit, and dedicate ourselves to representing our senatorial districts in this chamber. In other words, this special session is for us to totally reflect on the discharge of our mandate to our people. Distinguished colleagues, we are halfway into our tenure, as we all know, and our country is facing numerous challenges, and our citizens need us to continue to provide the needed parliamentary interventions for the remainder of the 2 years of this term. In this regard, we need to listen to the voices of the people and also listen to the silence of our citizens who are quiet and they are in the majority. Distinguished colleagues, at the outset of our journey, in June 11, 2019, we had developed a comprehensive legislative agenda to guide us in the pursuit of our constitutional mandates of lawmaking, oversight, and representation. We recall that the agenda was developed against the backdrop of underperforming economy when we came in, security challenges, unemployment, and a myriad of other socio-economic problems. The thrust of the agenda was therefore to contribute solutions to those and other challenges and restore the hope of Nigerians in their country and their confidence in its democratic institutions, especially the National Assembly. The key focus areas of the agenda are the economy, security, constitution amendment, anti-corruption legislation, judiciary reforms, electoral reforms, and socio-economic development through poverty alleviation, jobs creation, education, and healthcare. Permit me, therefore, to examine some of the interventions we have made so far in those areas. Lawmaking. The primary responsibility of Parliament is to make laws for the good governance of that country. That is also the priority of our agenda. The Senate passed hundreds of bills, legislations including confirmation of appointments for executive arm of government. About 742 bills were introduced during the 2 sessions of the Assembly, of which 58 have been passed. 355 bills have gone through first reading, 175 bills have gone through second reading and have been referred to the relevant committees for further legislative business, while 11 bills referred by the House of Representatives for concurrence have also been passed. The bills cut across all the sectors and touch on most areas of needs in the lives of our citizens. The economy, as I've said earlier, we agreed in our agenda to focus on some key areas including the economy. One of our most significant interventions in this sector is the restoration of the national annual budget to the January to December cycle. This measure has made the nation's fiscal plans more predictable and boosted the confidence of local and foreign investors in our economy. It is noteworthy that for the first time under the Fourth Republic, the budget achieved 100% implementation level last year, the 2020 budget. The restoration was achieved in partnership with our colleagues in the House of Representatives and with the cooperation and commitment of the executive arm of government. And it signaled the possibilities in our country when all stakeholders are working together. Also noteworthy is the passage of the Deep Offshore and Inland Basin Production Sharing Contracts Act, CAP D3 LFN 2004 Amendment Bill 2009. We passed this very important law to increase Nigeria's share of revenue from its crude oil. In other laws that we passed are having significant impacts on the economy include the Finance Bill 2019, Nigeria Tax and Fiscal Law, SB 140, which amended 7 existing tax laws. In our legislative agenda, we had also promised to create a legal environment conducive for ease of doing business. We kept this promise by passing the Companies and Allied Matters Act, CAP C20 LFN 2004, Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2019, SB 270. On the PIB, we promised to break the jinx on the petroleum industry bill, and we are on the verge of doing this by finally passing the bill sometimes this month of June, something that has defied passage for over 20 years. On the security challenges, we are currently pushing our country to the edge to ensure security challenges are currently pushing our country to the edge of the precipice. Insurgency, banditry, kidnapping, and attacks on public facilities are occurring daily in many parts of the country, with our security forces stretched almost to their elastic limit. To address the emergency, we passed several resolutions as part of our legislative interventions and kept engaging with the executive in order to achieve the desired outcome. And here, this Senate, under the leadership of the Senate leader, held a round-table discussion with all the security agencies, and we had very, very supportive resolutions which we passed to the executive arm of government. On constitution amendment, the review of the 1999 constitution has started in earnest, and of course, we had public hearings across the country in all the 6 geopolitical zones. In this respect, our Committee on the Constitution Review, having done the public hearings across the 6 geopolitical zones and also holding the national public hearing, is working assiduously on putting the report for this Senate to consider. And we are expecting that before we go on our annual summer recess in July, the Senate, working together with the House of Representatives, will vote on the issues that will be brought before it as a result of our public hearing. It is in line with the desire of our people to provide opportunities for Nigerians to express their views on issues that they feel very strongly about, that when we are able to consider those reports, we should be able to see areas of consensus and vote accordingly to ensure that we make governance better, that we make the Nigerian life secured and the property protected. On the electoral reform, our electoral process has shown remarkable improvement in the Fourth Republic since 1999, with the cycle now virtually stable. In 2023, we shall have the 7th regular cycle of general elections, the longest duration in the history of our nation. Despite the progress, gaps and inadequacies have been identified in the process. The Electoral Reform Bill will seek to address these gaps, and we have committed ourselves to passing the bill before we go on our annual summer recess also. Our committee on INEC has done a tremendous job, and they work together with their counterpart in the House of Representatives to ensure that we are on the same page. On anti-corruption, the fight against corruption is critical to the progress of Nigeria and is a key point in the agenda of the All Progressives Congress led federal government of President Muhammadu Buhari As part of our commitment to the success of the fight, we passed the Chartered Institute of Forensic Investigative Professionals of Nigeria to boost institutional capacity for fighting corruption in Nigeria. We believe that the new institute will provide the kind of services that can nip corruption in the bud in both the public and private sectors. We had earlier passed the Public Procurement Act 2007 Amendment Bill 2019 and the Public Procurement Act 2007 Amendment Bill SB 158, also to block the avenues for corruption in the procurement process by the MDAs. One of the developments we did not foresee at the inception of the 9th Assembly was the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. The disease caught the entire world by surprise and wreaked havoc on economies, large and small. Thanks to the unity of purpose in this chamber and the National Assembly at large. However, we are able to provide the necessary intervention in support of the efforts of the executive arm to combat the virus. And we will hear from our committee chairman on health and other senators. To help the nation cope with health emergency and its dire economic consequences, we promptly revised the budget which we had passed earlier in the previous December. Distinguished colleagues, permit me to conclude these remarks by expressing my profound gratitude to you all, my distinguished colleagues, for the support and cooperation that you have graciously given to the leadership of the Senate over the past 2 years. This has been one of the most peaceful, stable, focused, and productive Senate, and the credit goes to you all. You have always risen above partisan interest to stand firm for the unity, peace, progress, and development of our beloved country. I urge us all to continue in the same spirit so that we can keep the 9th Assembly or Senate on its glorious course. Distinguished colleagues, I also want to commend the clerk of the Senate and the Secretariat for providing the support services necessary for us to function here. Similarly, I want to thank the Senate Press Corps, our friends, for providing valuable media coverage for our activities. You have been very professional, patriotic, and you are worthy partners. In conclusion, let me also thank our colleagues in the House of Representatives who have always been on the same page with us working for this great country. I want to also thank Nigerians for the support and understanding in the last 2 years. We cherish your constructive criticisms and call to order. As the representatives of our people, we must continue to engage and provide veritable platform for citizen participation in legislation in particular and governance in general. Thank you for listening. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you very much. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, I thank you for your opening speech. You have covered a lot of the grounds that need to be covered. Therefore, all I'm here to do is to reiterate some of the issues that you have read. Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, today for us, this is a historic day which marks our 2nd anniversary. While we acknowledge the great work that has been done by our predecessors, let me put it on record that the 9th Senate has made a lot of progress on every front and therefore deserves to mark this very great day. When we started, I know that the 9th Senate is going to be significantly different and effective because it started with a conviction that we need to work for Nigerians by collaborating and engaging with other arms of government. Today, the 9th Senate, like the Senate President has said, has passed 70 bills in 2 years. For us, it's not just the number, but the quality of the bills that we have passed. The President has reeled out the total number of bills that have been passed, but I dare add again that we have introduced about 745 of them. We passed 70, and various other bills are in the pipeline. for consideration. We passed 250 motions and resolutions, received 221 petitions which are under consideration, and the motions and resolutions that we have are classified as follows. Our motions on security alone are 67. On the economy, we have about 106. On health issues, we have 16. On education, we have 10. And I know that before we go on, this number is going to increase. Like I said, it's not really the number that matters, but the quality. This is why we have paid more attention to the laws that give our people opportunity to prosper and create a level ground for them to explore their potentials. I sincerely congratulate every one of us for putting in the hard work to ensure that we pass these bills. We have taken the toughest bills and challenges affecting the unity of this country, the welfare and security of our people, in order to create the necessary platform for a greater Nigerian economy and society. The President has reeled out some of these important bills, like the Deep Offshore Inland Protection Sharing Contract Bill, the Nigerian Railway Bill, the Company and Allied Matters Act, the National Transport Commission, the Finance Bill, which is now an act, the AMCON Act, Police Trust Fund, Public Procurement Act, Banking and Other Financial Institutions Act, and many others. All these are in order to ensure the economic security and reform that we need for this country to prosper. The Ninth Senate had given its full attention to the challenges, particularly the issue of insecurity in the country in the last 2 years, often making direct and decisive intervention to strengthen the national security architecture and to bring succor to all Nigerians. As a countermeasure to an increasing spate of killings, kidnappings, and other acts of criminality, the Ninth Senate has passed 69 resolutions that will have direct bearing on the security of lives and property of Nigerians. In line with the power of oversight, the Ninth Senate has interfered on many occasions with security chiefs to seek out enduring solutions to the problems of insecurity. Some of these engagements direct at the committee level or at the leadership level. We have undertaken this to ensure that the security of this country is not taken for granted. Order. Having regard to the enormous role and importance of the Nigerian police in maintaining law and order in our community, the Ninth Senate has passed and initiated bills dealing with the police, with much emphasis on removing and improving the welfare of the police officers. The Ninth Senate therefore passed the Police Trust Fund Bill to enhance the effectiveness of the rank and file in the discharge of their security duties, and also working on the Armed Forces Trust Fund to cater for our military personnel. The Ninth Senate is concerned with the escalation of violence across the country and suspended plenary for all important security summits that was referred to by Mr. President. Among the outcome of the Senate were many resolutions, including the immediate and comprehensive review of the nation's security architecture. On the economy front, the Ninth Senate in its 2 years of existence based itself on the search for corrective measures that will put the economy on sound footing and engage the effectiveness of our industry, financiers, and investors. It considered and passed the Deep Offshore Industry Bill, like I said, the Move Up Fund, the Economic Finance Bill that we passed, which will review the different tax laws in order to harmonize and ensure that the economy generates the revenue that is required for development. For a vibrant economy, the Ninth Senate resolved to pass the Petroleum Industry Bill, which is ready for consideration of the Committee of the Whole. Immediately we resume from our end of session break. The PIB, when passed, will modernize and overhaul the laws governing the industry to make for more cohesive and conducive business environment for the petroleum industry. The bill sought to create entirely new regulatory and institutional regime for the oil and gas industry. Mr. President, my highly respected colleagues, the Ninth Senate, keeping with our legislative agenda in ensuring the diversification of the economy, the Ninth Senate, through our committees of agriculture, rural development, and minerals, also worked on the ways and means of creating an economy that is diversified away from dependence on oil. It also considers and passed Agriculture Development Fund and the Nigerian Food Reserve Agency Bill, while the Nigerian Mineral Development Corporation and Steel Development Company, the Soil Mineral Producing Areas Development Commission, and Soil Mineral Development Bank are at different stages of consideration. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the Nigerian Senate, in our collective resolve to restore confidence to Nigerians in the art of governance and to provide the necessary legislative framework, and realign the budget cycle that the President has said. Now, this realignment was fundamental because it allowed this country to go through the COVID thing without losing out as much as even the most advanced countries of the world. So Nigerians were saved, really, literally, by the action of the National Assembly in shaping the business cycle to ensure that businesses and the entire national economy does not go into recession. The amendment to the Constitution, like the President has said, is on, and we have gone through both the zonal and national interactive sessions, and very soon before we go on our summer recess, the issues will be tackled and resolved once and for all. The electoral amendment bill will be tabled for consideration and passage, like the President also said, before the Senate closes for its summer vacation. Mr. President, in any journey such as ours, there are always difficulties that arise. But I am very happy that we have been able to navigate the waters with modest success while trying to maintain the unity and strength of this institution. Mr. President, my highly respected colleagues, I am satisfied with the modest achievement of the Nigerian Senate in the discharge of its constitutional responsibility with much diligence, unity, and commitment to work for Nigerians in line with our legislative agenda. And a statement will continue to raise our capacity to work diligently for the unity and for the good of the entire nation. I thank you, my colleagues. I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Leader. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, my name is Naya Baribe, and I represent Abia South. The minority leader would like to decline making any comments. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. The DSP, do you want to say something? Okay. The Chief Whip. The Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, I will not decline making a statement at this time because this is an opportunity for me to raise a number of issues. First of all, let me appreciate the Senate President. It's on. Sorry?
You are not facing the mic.
Oh, okay. Let me first of all appreciate the Senate President, under whose leadership we have been able to achieve the modest progress we have made so far. Your style of leadership, transparency, integrity has been the driving force for this achievement. You have enumerated the legislative achievements under our legislative agenda, and I want to say we have made so much tremendous progress. However, we need to do more. I think this occasion is not for us to praise ourselves, as we have said, but to assess our performance and to encourage ourselves to do more in the interest of this nation. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, in the course of achieving these objectives and goals of our legislative agenda, certain summits were carried out in some strategic areas like power, agriculture, defense, security. Unfortunately, Mr. President, the executive summaries of this summit were not available to members of Senate. We are the spokesmen of Senate, not along the form of press conferences, but we have a spokesman for the Senate. Mr. President is also there to speak for us. But in a way, in our constituencies, in some fora, we've become the spokesman for the Senate. And we need to be equipped with this information, executive summary of reports on the agriculture, for instance, power. So, Mr. President, I would suggest that this document is available, to be made available to members of Senate. Mr. President, I think it's not a hidden secret that Senate is one of the most criticized institutions in this country. And it is based on misconception of what our mandate and how we operate. I want to suggest, Mr. President, that once in a while, maybe once in a quarter, we should have an open house meeting with some critical sectors of the public, like the Bar Association, like the Nigerian Union of Journalists, so that we can have an interaction. They can ask questions that are, very important to understanding how we work and what we stand for. It is not Senate against the public. We are representing the public. We are representing various constituencies. And so it is good for us to have opportunity to interact with these critical sectors, for them to understand us more, because we are all working in the interest of this country. Mr. President, this is my modest contribution. Again, let me appreciate your style of leadership in driving the achievement we have so far. Thank you, Mr. President.
Deputy Chief Whip.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, I'm Aliu Sabi Abdullahi. I represent Niger North Senatorial District. I'm from Niger State. Mr. President, let me join you and others who have spoken in congratulating our very distinguished colleagues and to thank Almighty Allah for giving us this grace of witnessing 2 years of our legislative years in the cycle that we have. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, as we celebrate these 2 years today, mine is to say that, of course, we were guided by our legislative agenda, for which you have so carefully informed us of what we have been able to achieve. And the leader has also made additional points on that. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the point I would like to stress today is to tell us that the unity of purpose, which we have so marvelously worked for up to date, has enabled us to achieve those giant strides you have mentioned. And I think if you look at one of the bills you have mentioned, the production sharing contract, which never saw the light of the day until this assembly, is a testimony to how we have been able to work in very clear terms and in unity in the interest of this country. If you also examine the present challenges that this country is facing, it requires that all of us must act in unison if this country is to be salvaged from the challenges that it is presently facing. And that is what is significant. There is no system that is ever perfect. But when a system, as imperfect as it may be, has stability, then it will be able to walk through and solve the challenges that beset that system. And I think as members of this distinguished Halo Chamber, that is the national duty upon us. That is the constitutional mandate upon us. And I would like to urge and appeal once again that we need to really work together and find common grounds and solutions to the problems that beset this country. There is no doubt the aspect of security, which is clearly linked to the economy, is the key challenge. We have been deliberating almost every day when we come in here. We have been discussing, and I think we will never get tired of discussing, because that's exactly why we are brought by the mandate we have of our people to be in this chamber. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, let us not take this opportunity for granted, because one day we will be by the side and we will have cause to reflect back and see what we have contributed. And I think the remainder of the 2 years we have, by the grace of God, should serve as another opportunity for us to walk through areas we have not been able to achieve. And I know we have quite a lot ahead of us. The PIB is there, it's one litmus test. The Electoral Act amendment, the constitutional amendment, which we hope will be able to address the very fundamental issues. And in doing so, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, let me remind us that there is no group in this country today that has the legality, constitutionality, and mandate to address these issues than those of us seated in this Halo Chamber. And I think we have to take this very seriously, so that at the end of the day, when duty calls upon us to look at these issues, we should look at them and dissect them as statements, believing and trusting that doing so is for the collective interest and mutual benefit of all of us Nigerians. I believe very strongly that is the terms we should be working with. With these few comments, I once again want to say congratulations to all of us as we look forward to 2 more years of very strong, positive legislative action. Thank you. I so submit.
Thank you, distinguished colleagues. We have to time ourselves. Is it okay we allocate 3 minutes per intervention? Is 3 minutes okay? It's too much. How many minutes? 2 minutes. Okay, the average is 3 minutes. Chief Whip, please, you keep to the time. Distinguished Senator Mohamed Adamalero.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I remain Mohamed Adamalero, representing Kemi Central. Mr. President, I have the singular honor and privilege of designing the agenda for the 9th Senate. And since inception, we have religiously followed that agenda. I have been following the proceedings of the Senate, the bills we passed, the debates that we normally had, and it's all geared towards achieving the agenda we designed for the 9th Senate. First and foremost, Mr. President, we were able to restore the budget cycle from January to December. This has made the business more predictable. Investors have more confidence in coming to Nigeria and invest than before, when nobody knows the time the budget will be passed and nobody knows the time it will end. Now it is quite predictable, and both the executive and the legislature work together to achieve this. So I will say congratulations to the National Assembly and congratulations to also the executive arm of government. Mr. President, having said this, let me also comment on the constitutional amendment. We started on a very clean slate by inaugurating the committee comprising members from different geopolitical zones. And in doing so, we were also able to have several meetings. We discussed topical issues in the country during that meeting: restructuring, electoral reforms, local government autonomy, independence of the judiciary, office of the Accountant General of the Federation, office of the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, and so forth. And we were also able to have subcommittees for each geopolitical zones, 2 committees for each geopolitical zone to discuss the constitutional amendment. A lot of submissions were made, a lot of presentations were made at the various subcommittees. And in addition to that, we came to here in Abuja and we had public hearing on the constitutional amendment. And it was a summation of what happened at the zonal levels. And I will say that if we go through that very well, Mr. President, we will be able to resolve so many challenges that are currently bedeviling this country. Mr. President, we have not reached where we want to reach.
Distinguished colleagues, please, we shouldn't stand on the aisle.
Mr. President, we have not reached where we want to reach. We talk so much about diversification of the economy. We passed a lot of legislation to reform the agricultural sector so that agriculture will be seen as a business so that we can grow enough food for ourselves and even export. Create employment, alleviate poverty. But Mr. President, on the issue of security, I know so much has been done about security challenges, but Mr. President, again, here, Nigerians are expecting a lot from us. We are not there yet. So we have to redouble our effort to ensure that we secure this country. We had several meetings with the service chiefs. The various committees had a lot of meetings with the security agencies, all geared towards securing Nigeria. But we are yet to be there, Mr. President, and I therefore want us to redouble our effort to ensure that Nigeria is secured. Lastly, Mr. President, because of the time factor, I will talk about electoral reform. Mr. President, electoral reform is very, very important to the survival of democracy in Nigeria. We have to do all we can to ensure that we pass the Electoral Act so that elections will be credible, acceptable, and will be free and fair. If we don't do that, Mr. President, the Ninth Assembly will be failing its responsibility. And I'm happy when you mentioned that before the end of June, we will be able to pass the Electoral Act. The PID, we have debated on it. It is now at the committee stage. We hope that before we go on the summer break, we will be able to also pass the petroleum industry bill, which is also critical to the survival of our economy. And with these few comments, I rest my case.
Chief Whip, 3 minutes. Distinguished Senator Ibrahim Olorogbe.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. My name is Ibrahim Yaya Oloriegbe. I represent Kwara Central Secretariat District. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, let me join the previous speaker to congratulate all of us, particularly our leadership, for today.
Whip, Please leave Senator Smartadin. Release his leg.
For making us to witness today. Mr. President, my focus of intervention in this debate will be just like you stated in your opening speech, in your remark, to review what we have been able to do as legislator in the last 2 years as far as the health sector is concerned. This becomes important and necessary because 15 months out of these 24 months has been a change world for everybody in this planet where we are. With the pandemic that started just barely 7 months when we came into office. It was reported in January, and in Nigeria for the first time on February 28, we had a case. This has been a defining moment for all of us, and particularly for us as legislators. But Mr. President, I'm pleased to say that we have done quite well as a country, and as legislators we have contributed to what we've achieved. And as they said, statistics don't lie. Mr. President, so far in the last 15 months, Nigeria has reported only about 167,000 cases of COVID-19. This is less than 0.01 of our population. If you compare our country's size, we compare our level of health infrastructures and so on, we have been able to do well to contain and maintain this. Yes, it is not good to have even one death, but we could proudly say that based on the various interventions, Nigeria only recorded about 2,117 deaths so far in the last 15 months. This is about 1.26%, what we call fatality rate. This is very small compared to what happened in many other countries. So also are other statistics. Mr. President, but what is our intervention? We have used our functions as legislator of legislation, oversight, and representation to effectively provide necessary intervention to our country. Mr. President, based on our intervention, when this pandemic came on board, this country had only 2 laboratories that can test COVID-19. As we speak now, based on legislation that we made through appropriation, we have public sector more than 100 laboratories. In every state of the country, every federal institution now has a molecular testing lab. In addition to that, NCDC has at least 2 testing labs per geopolitical zone. Mr. President, the main form of treatment for this disease was isolation. Mr. President, you recall one of your interventions earlier is that in Abuja here, when this disease started, there was no any even isolation center. But as we speak now, every state in this country has at least a 30-bed isolation center in addition to the mega isolation centers that have been built. In which case, today, if we have similar diseases...
Distinguished memorandum, please.
We have intervened in the health sector. We have done very well in other legislative agenda, particularly expanding affordable health care. This Senate passed the National Health Insurance Agency Act. This Senate was able to move basic healthcare provision fund to statutory allocation. And I want to summarize and say that it's not yet huru for us. We have a lot to do in the next 2 years, particularly to expand access to our people in terms of financing healthcare. I look forward to in 2022 budget, we'll be able to do better in terms of allocating more resources, particularly passing what we call sin tax law that will help us to improve healthcare financing. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator Gabriel Susom.
Mr. President, my name is Dr. Gabriel Suswam, Benue North East. Mr. President, let me thank the leader for leading this debate on our journey so far. Mr. President, if you have a problem and say you won't talk about it, that is not the solution. So I was sent here to talk on behalf of the people of Benue Northeast, and so I must talk today. And in talking, Mr. President, I want to say that in spite of the challenges, in spite of the shortcomings, I want to beat my chest and say that as a parliament, we have taken necessary steps to to do what we're sent here to come and do. No matter what whoever says, Mr. President, you read an agenda that we set for ourselves. And consciously and deliberately, as a parliament, we have taken steps to achieve some of those set objectives for ourselves. And since we came here from day one, we've been confronted with the serious issues of insecurity in this country. And what have we done? We have addressed this issue with passed resolution. This chamber set up we set up a committee headed by the leader of the Senate, and far-reaching resolutions were passed by these chambers that were sent to the executive. The fact that those actions were not taken, or rather the resolution were not implemented, is not our fault. We find ourselves in a situation where we are doing what is right for the country and for Nigerians, and the executives are refusing to implement it, and we must talk about it, Mr. President. That is not to say that we've not performed. We have. Like you said, I've been in the House of Representatives before for a very long period of time. The issue of budget cycle from January to December was looking like a mirage. But when we came here and promised Nigerians that we're going to do that, we've been doing it for the past 2 years. That is no mean achievement. And so we as a parliament, we as a Senate, we have tried to address the fierce hopes and aspirations of Nigeria on this floor. Unfortunately, Mr. President, the executive have rather been intransigent in implementing what we pass here. And so we can't say that is our fault. We have tried. A journey of 4 years, we've done 2 years. With the bills that you mentioned here, and those that have been passed, and those that are waiting passage, and with the promise, I want to join Senator Adamu Alero, that the Electoral Act, Mr. President, that Electoral Act is the concern of each and every Nigerian to create transparency on our electoral system. And Mr. President, when you promise, we believe that as our leader, you always fulfill that promise. Please, Mr. President, let that Electoral Act be passed with the clause that deals with transmission, electronic transmission. The rumor has been that there's a deliberate attempt to remove that clause out of that Electoral Act and the card reader. Mr. President, if we pass that Electoral Act transparently, with the electronic transmission and card reader, Mr. President, all Nigerians will clap for us. And I believe that you always stand for transparency and you will not allow those clauses to be removed from that Electoral Act. Mr. President, we've done well. And I want to congratulate ourselves. The Igbo people say that Gama Rizat that jumped from the Iroko tree. If there's no person to praise him, he knows his head. Mr. President, let us know our head. We've done well. May God bless us.
Thank you very much. Distinguished Senator Chukwuka Utazi, Enugu North.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to join the rest of our colleagues here to congratulate you and the leadership of the 9th Senate for living up to expectations, working very hard to make sure that things work well for the country and in the job you are elected to do here. It's not easy sitting on that seat and administering the issues that come on daily basis before you here. So I congratulate you and the leadership. And having said that, Mr. President, I want to say that in these last 2 years, the executive legislative relationship has been a good one. We have had one retreat with the executive. We never had it before, but we had this period. We usually know that once in a while we sit with Mr. President in the Aso Rock and discuss with him for a dinner. But since 2 years, we never had any dinner with Mr. President. but we are still cooperating. Mr. President, I also want to say that unemployment has been an issue here. We have been discussing about this unemployment. And I remember that I brought a bill, a motion, after the election of 2019, where I discussed the issue of bridging the gap between the haves and the have-nots, nipping in the bud the seed of looming violent revolution. I brought it at this floor as an agenda-setting motion for this Ninth Assembly and government that was newly elected. We have made efforts, Mr. President, to see how we can do that, but enough has not been done. I hope that in the remaining 2 years, we do something more. I also brought a motion here in this Ninth Assembly on power needs of this country, that if you want private sector to take leadership in driving the economy, that they have to do something. That motion, we addressed it very well, and set the process in motion with Senator Suswan leading in his committee. We have not done well with that as far as I'm concerned, because the problems are still lingering. But 2 years is still enough for us to handle that. Insecurity has been setting on us on the face and causing a lot of problem here. We have had more motions on insecurity here than we have had on any other thing. It's a pointer that something is wrong, and we'll have to look at it. We want Mr. President to be more forthcoming in terms of speaking against the headers and farmers clashes in this country. We want Mr. President to be open to talk to us. We want him to speak to the issue. We want him that those of us that are bothered so much about the activities with the farmers and the clashes there, we want our President to condemn in its entirety of the activities of the headers that are making life unbearable for us in the southeast, especially in Enugu. So we want him to talk about that. And we want to also say that, that the activities have reached a dimension that they should be declared terrorists. That's what they are. Anybody carrying AK-47 and threatening the life of others is a terrorist and should not be allowed. That we should do that. It's very, very important. We also have been confronted with the agitations of people who are from all parts of the divide. It's a pointer that something is wrong. If we are having agitations, is a pointer. And it is our duty as parliamentarians to point the way forward so that things will be done. If we do that, Mr. President, it's going to be well with all of us here. I also want to talk about the constitutional review. It's very, very important that we are taking it, Mr. President. We are taking this constitutional review. The Southeast Geopolitical Zone needs one state, and it has been done. The CONFAB agreed on one at other states. We want that this constitutional review, that we look at it properly and use this opportunity to bring the Southeast at par with the rest of the geopolitical zones. It's very, very important that can make down the tension in the Southeast and make sure that things work for our people very well. So it's very, very important. The other issue is the structuring. If we
please, please round up, because this is supposed to be 3 minutes. Yes.
Mr. President, I'll talk about restructuring. We have to look at it. APC came up with their report on that. And I have the volumes of that report by APC as a party that is in charge of government. Let us look at that, the report, because they supported restructuring. Let restructuring be part of this constitution. You do that the tension. That's what we are doing as a parliamentarian. It is within our competence to do that. And I am urging this assembly that by the time we come to vote on all issues here, that all of us here should agree and make sure that we vote for that and get it done for people. State police.
Distinguished, please. We have our colleagues waiting. Please, let's be fair to each other. Okay. Distinguished colleagues, before Senator Solomon Adiola takes the floor, please, I want to make this appeal. We are supposed to be fair to each other. If we say 3 minutes, we have over 30 senators who want to speak. And if we go on everybody speaking for undetermined length of time, we may end up denying some of our colleagues the opportunity to speak. So please, I urge all of us to speak within the limits. Senator Solomon Adiola Olamileko.
Sorry, please. Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleague, Adiola Solomon Olamileko, representing Lagos West Senatorial District in the Senate of Federal Republic. Mr. President, distinguished colleague, let me join you to congratulate you and congratulate the entire 108 senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria on our second year anniversary. Mr. President, very distinguished colleague, for those that are no more, that we started together, it is my prayer that God in His infinite mercy will continue to grant their family the grace, the gratitude to bear the irreplaceable loss. And for those that have just joined us, once more, I welcome them to the Senate. Mr. President, I strongly believe that the last 2 years of the Senate of the Federal Republic, the 9th Senate, we have not done badly. I will start with the economy. Mr. President, for 2 consecutive times, this country economy went into recession. The first was during the oil prices, where the prices were just falling flat. And the second was during the pandemic. And for these 2 occasions, this Senate rise to the occasion. This Senate come to the aid of the Nigerian economy by intervening through prompt passage of the budget, by returning the budget calendar between January and December. Not only that, this Senate also rise to the occasion by giving 500 billion COVID-19 intervention fund. All of this is to aid to boost the economy, to take the economy out of recession. And as we speak today, Nigerian economy is out of recession. Mr. President, on the issue of the budget cycle, many of my colleagues, your speech, the Senate leader has spoken about it. But the uniqueness about this particular process is the ability that we have succeeded in regulating the Nigerian economy. Time in the past, where we have budget to be passed 6 months into the previous year. But by that singular action of returning the budget calendar from January to December, we have succeeded in repositioning the economy of this country. And it's very unique. Mr. President, on the issue of the security, yes, it is a challenging time for us as a nation. There is security challenges everywhere. But this Senate has taken a bold step in that direction by organizing a security summit and coming out with a position paper, which we believe that at any point in time, when the executive are ready to look into this report, solutions to the security challenges of this country are contained in that report, and it will be of great usefulness to the Nigerian government. Mr. President, we have also come to the aid of this nation in the area of ease of doing business, in the area of repositioning the banking sector, and we have succeeded in passing the Company and Allied Matters Act as amended by the Senate. And as well, we have also succeeded in passing the Banking and Other Financial Institution Act. These are 2 major bills that have not only we continue to be remembered for what this nice Senate has done. The INEC is in the pipeline, the PIB is to be concluded, and we can still count those 2 bills, if passed before we go on recess, as part of our second year anniversary bill that was passed by the Senate. And these are no small mean feats that we have achieved as a night Senate. I want to congratulate every member of this Senate who have worked tirelessly hard to ensure that all these objectives are achieved. Mr. President, in accordance with the legislative agenda which we have read out, no aspect of our legislative agenda we have not attended to. No. In terms of motion, in terms of bill passage, we have attended to every aspect of the legislative agenda. The only aspect that was left out and which we never eviscerate is the issue of COVID-19. Is the issue of COVID-19. But as far as we are concerned, we are on track and we are doing our best. And we will not relent on our effort until we are able, through legislative intervention, to have a Nigeria that is acceptable to all, a Nigerian that we all be proud of. I so submit, Mr. President.
Senator Olubimi Adetumbi.
Thank you, Mr. President. I I want to thank you for the privilege of this voice and to congratulate the entire Senate for the successful 24 months of deliberations in the chamber. The achievements of the Ninth Senate is very evident, and it has been eloquently enumerated by previous speakers. And I'm not going to indulge in any repetition, but I'm going to underscore that there's a huge public expectation on the ongoing constitutional amendment process. The entire country is waiting on the National Assembly to give the public a source of hope for a stable future for our country. One can only pray that this exercise will be successful and meet the popular expectation of Nigerians. Because bottom line, it's a game of numbers, and the proposals are out there, and it will be subjected to voting. We just pray and hope that the outcome of our decisions here will make Nigerians happy, and it will create an atmosphere of peace and met expectation. This is one area that I believe that as a chamber, we need to work very hard to make sure that we deliver to Nigeria the type of constitutional amendments that they require. Emphasis has been made on the need for expeditious completion of the petroleum industry bill and the INEC bill, amendment bill. These are areas where the challenges within the general polity can be stabilized. And I hope and I pray that this Senate will live up to expectation. Finally, I would like to remember our fallen heroes in this chamber. Many of them will remember their contributions to the business of our country, the solutions that they have offered, and we pray that their soul will continue to rest in peace. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Senator Bikula Amosu.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, Ibikunle Amosu, I represent Ogun Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, first let me congratulate you, and let me congratulate all the distinguished members of this Senate. Mr. President, let me say from onset that, yes, we are not where we want to be. We are not yet there. But clearly, we are on the right path, despite all the challenges that we are having. Mr. President, without sounding repetitive, I will just highlight some of the achievements that we've made here, which several of our colleagues that spoke before me have highlighted. First, which is very important, it is the restoration of this, our budget cycle. People will want to just gloss over it and say, oh, yes, what about it? But truly, truly, it is something that we should. At any time that they are discussing about this Ninth Senate, we should say, yes, we'll restore sanity back into our budget cycle. Mr. President, the foundation for what I call a good Nigeria, a better Nigeria, we are laying it every day with our collaboration with the executive arm of government. Mr. President, I will mention about 4 or 5 of those critical things that we have done, or we are about to conclude. Of course, everybody has talked about the Electoral Act. Of course, that is the foundation, really, because without having what I call a very transparent, democratic election, we will not get it right. And I'm happy that this Senate is working day and night to make sure that we pass this Electoral Act before even we go on our holidays. Another area where I want to commend us, it is this area of constitutional amendment. And Mr. President, I was here in 2003 to 2007, which we run around like this, and eventually the thing was thrown away. But this time around, with what we are doing, and with the active involvement of you and other leaders of this Senate, I think Nigeria will be happy with the outcome of the constitutional review that we have promised. And you said it again this morning, that we'll do all within our power to make sure that before we go on this our vacation, it will be done. Mr. President, needless for me to stress that PIB, you've said it, PIB was like something that would never happen. And somehow we are almost there. And I happen to be part of those that work around with all our other colleagues to get it right. Mr. President, we should not forget that PSN, people will just say, oh, what is that? But today, it is helping our economy. It is helping us as a nation. Because those money that nobody cared about, everybody is now seeing the benefits of what we have done. Mr. President, I want to talk about our efforts in diversifying this, our economy. I want to talk about our efforts in laying the foundation for good infrastructure. Because without infrastructure, without the diversification of our economy, we will not get it right as a nation. We are supporting the executive with the necessary legislative backing, and that is what they are achieving, what they are achieving now. Mr. President, one area that is overshadowing all this good work that we are doing, it is security. And I'm sure and I'm happy that we are not resting. Every day we talk about security. Every day we are talking about security. We should not be tired. Mr. President, we should continue to stress it, to dwell on it. If we need to be troubling the executive every day, we should, for the sake of this, our nation. Mr. President, I want to congratulate all of us again. I want to say that we are on the right path, and God's willing, we are going to get there. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator Sadiq Suleiman Umar.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, I am Sadiq Suleiman Umar. I represent the good and decent people of Kwara North, and we all are. Mr. President, before I congratulate us like everybody else did, let me try to put the data already read out, which we all have had, in a pictorial form so that we appreciate the reality of what we've been doing here in the last 2 years. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, the bills that have been brought here, about 745, the motions passed 250, they all fit into the framework of our legislative agenda and indeed the nation's mood and the nation's reality. For example, let me put the picture clearly for us to see. Out of the 250 motions that we took here, 80% of these motions were only focused on only 4 key sectors. Number one, the educational sector. 4% of all motions we took was on education. 6.5% was on health sector. 26.5% of these motions was on security. And 42.4%, I repeat that, 42.2% of all the motions we took here was on the economy. Now, it's clear that our distinguished senators are aware of what the situation is in this country. They know what their constituents are going through and what they need. And that is why education and health, that are the key drivers of our societal development, have been a priority to them. They also know that security is the key to achieving all other things you want to achieve. Without security, nothing can happen. That is why they dedicated their efforts to 26% of all the motion. And like in US, it's not only in the US that the economy is stupid. It is in fact even more stupid here in Nigeria. And distinguished senators recognize that. And almost half of all the motions they brought here is about the economy and the economy. Now, the bigger question one we ask is that, and so what? Yes, there is a big deal. This is our job. This is what we are asked to do, to pass laws and bring motions to solve problems. We did that. So congratulations, our distinguished senators, for a very good job so far. And lastly, Mr. President, we have confirmed about 60 requests from the executive. And I know this is controversial. Some people will say, oh, we just passed. Anyway, I'm aware that this Senate, part of our legislative agenda is that we are going to have a Senate that works for all Nigerians. To have that Senate means we must ensure systems are working, are functioning, personnel are there to move things forward. And therefore, we do not joke with any confirmation that we need to do so that systems will work in this country. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for the opportunity.
Thank you. Senator Rochas Okorocha.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, Mr. President, I would like to go a bit spiritual this morning, this afternoon, to thank God Almighty that despite our challenges and the situation we find ourselves, we are still sitting here as a united Nigeria. To God be the glory. Mr. President, I say so because it's only a miracle of God that we are still seated here as senators. Every factor, every criteria that would have led to anger, dispassion, and who have divided us has not succeeded. So I thank God Almighty. But as we catalog our achievements and enumerate the great achievement of the 9th Senate, which I share and congratulate you and congratulate my dear colleagues, I'd like to say, Mr. President, that we do not forget that we're here because of the people, and we're elected by the people to serve the people, and we're here at their mercy. So the right people or the right person that will have judged our performance should have been the people. I say so because political power, whether legislature or executive, is but a trust that can only be justified when used for the benefit of the common man. The question before us this afternoon is that the people who have made this lawful, how happy are they? What are their emotions? I think, Mr. President, that a day like this should have been set aside in addition to discussing the state of the nation, but to assuage and give confidence to the people that have elected us. That though we are passing through this difficult moment of our nation, there's still hope for the light at the dark end of the tunnel. That we assure them that Nigeria must be better despite all the challenges we have. This is because today, if you ask a common man, how do you feel about our Senate? He will ask us, what do you think that is happening with my stomach? And what do you think that is happening with my happiness and sense of justice? I've repeatedly said that this Senate must rise and support the executive to address the issue of poverty and injustice in this nation. In Imo, there's a cry for injustice. In Borno, there's a cry for injustice. In Sokoto, there's a cry for injustice. And we must also, as a Senate, after 2 years, to do all we can to stop this ethnic profiling of our people, where we believe, where we're not able to separate criminals from where they come from. Today, in the recent killings in Imo State and in the Southeast, Nigerians will be quick to profile Igbos as killers, just like Fulanis are profiled as herdsmen and killers. We must do everything we can do as a Senate for the unity of this country to stop ethnic profiling so we can separate criminals from where they come from. With this, Mr. President, I want to say that we assuage the people of Nigeria and give them hope, and to thank all of us here that we are still united as a people despite our failings, and we still believe in the unity of this country. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Distinguished Senator Ezinwa Onyewuchi. Distinguished Senator Nicholas Tofomo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm very delighted that you have called me. First of all, let me thank you for supporting me when I had an accident in 2019. I got here within 3 months. I had a terrible accident, and it was a disaster. I'm just lucky that I'm still alive. And you came to visit me at the hospital in Ondo State. You came with most of our colleagues. And when you saw me, I was looking into your eyes. Your body chemistry changed. And I give God the glory that I'm still alive today. And I want to thank most of my colleagues here. They supported me with money, and your money was very, very substantial. I cannot announce it here, but it went a long way. It was a very, very bad accident. And let me seize this opportunity to thank my people from Ondo South. They stood by me. They thought I wouldn't be able to come back, but I fought back, and I thank God that I'm doing well now. My concern here is very clear. Since I've been here, I've been talking about Nigerian police. Nigerian police. If you travel out of Nigeria, you go to Britain, you go to America, and you come back home, you start asking yourself that, do we really have police in this country? It's very embarrassing. Our Nigerian police setup is very terrible. We've made a lot of recommendations here. We've written to the executive, but they've not done enough. My suggestion is that we have 2 more years to spend here. Let us go further beyond writing letters to the executive. Let us set up senatorial development impact. We have 33 senators from each state. Let's go back home and do something. For instance, in Lagos State, during the crisis, I think it's the FSARS crisis, they burned 26 police stations. Up till now, none of these police stations has been rectified. So please, let us reform our police before we leave office. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Distinguished Senator Eddie Young.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, I remain Senator I.D. Young, representing the blessed people of Plateau North. Mr. President, indeed, we, the 109 senators, are among the most privileged and opportune Nigerians that have been elected to undertake the critical role of lawmaking for this country. And as we mark 2 years in the 9th Assembly, it is an opportunity to remind ourselves of the constitutional mandate of the legislature, which in section 4.2 of the Constitution says that the National Assembly shall have power to make laws for the peace, order, and good government of the Federation. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, this 3-point mandate of making laws for peace, order, and good government, when we look at the situation in our country, our peace has been challenged by the spate of insecurity that we have been facing, which has dominated most of our discourse and resolutions here in this Senate. And as we are speaking up to date, we are still losing many lives of our citizens.
Well, at this point in time, we'll round off our live broadcast of Senate plenary. At the moment, Senate today, well, dedicated today's plenary to marking its 2 years anniversary. Now, Senate has announced that within the last 2 years, it has considered 745 bills, that is bills introduced in the Senate. And out of that 745 bills, 70 of them have been passed. Senate says it received 250 motions and 221 petitions. Well, senators, most of them made contributions in as much as they acknowledge that they've done some interventions in critical areas of the Nigerian economy. They also called for a review and re-strategized to ensure that more effects and more impacts will be felt from the Senate. And then some of them explained that there is need for more patriotism by senators. And then they also explained that the restoration of the annual budget from January to December cycle in 2020 is a very strategic move by the 9th Senate. They also mentioned the Deep Offshore Amendment Bill and the Finance Bill 2019 as some of the important economic bills that the 9th Senate has passed that has helped the Nigerian economy. Well, at this point in time, we will now hand you over to our studios so as to continue with our scheduled program for the day. I am Ignatius Nkwo, and on behalf of the outside broadcast crew, bye for now.